Ladies and gentlemen, there is one picture that will haunt Pahalgam for a long, long time to come. India's mini Switzerland, a honeymooner's favorite that became a killing ground that widowed 28 women from across India. You see one of them on your screens. This was them yesterday, and then this was them 8 days ago. 26-year-old Navy officer Lieutenant Vinay Narwal at his wedding with his childhood sweetheart Himanshi. The young couple smiling at the cameras, posing, looking forward to a lifetime together. They were to go to Europe for their honeymoon, but their visa was rejected. And so they came to Pahalgam. It's a honeymoon that has turned into a nightmare. From that happy bride in red, ladies and gentlemen, this was Himanshi yesterday, and this is Himanshi today. In white, next to her husband's coffin, still trying to make sense of what has happened. Listen in. The ferns meadows of Pahalgam are soaked in the blood of many such heartbreaks. You see just one of them on your screens. Here's another. 46-year-old Manjunath from Shivamoga was traveling to Kashmir for the first time with his wife Pallavi and son Abhijan. He'd got a 97% in his exams. They were celebrating that. You can see them here enjoying their Shikara ride at the Dal Lake in Srinagar. In Pahalgam, Manjunath was shot in the head. Pallavi asked the terrorist to shoot her as well. She said, "You've killed my husband, now kill me, now shoot me, shoot my son." The terrorist said, "I will not do it, I will not shoot you. Go tell Modi this." Not far from where Manjunath was shot was Corporal Tage Haliang from the Indian Air Force. He was posted at the Air Force base in Srinagar. His wife, also from Arunachal Pradesh, had wanted to see Pahalgam. Both husband and wife went as tourists. One has now returned in a coffin. Ladies and gentlemen, just how terrifying those 20 minutes were is evidenced from a video that has emerged of a family so scared that they begged an army man they saw with a gun not to kill them. They thought he was a terrorist too. Just take a look at this.
अरे नहीं हम लोग फौज हैं, हम लोग बैठो हम लोग फौज हैं, बैठो चलो अरे हम लोग फौजी हैं, कुछ नहीं करेंगे, आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं, आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं, बैठो आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं, हम इंडियन आर्मी हैं, बैठो। ये इंडियन आर्मी आप लोग कहाँ से आए हो, कहाँ से आए आप लोग हैं? आपके बच्चे कुछ नहीं करेंगे, थोड़ा बताइए। हुआ पति के आए हैं, बैठो आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं, हम इंडियन आर्मी हैं, बैठो। ये इंडियन आर्मी आप लोग कहाँ से आए हो, कहाँ से आए आप लोग हैं? आपके बच्चे कुछ नहीं करेंगे, थोड़ा बताइए। हुआ
Ladies and gentlemen, as India seethes at this targeted attack on non-Muslims, Pahalgam today came out to pay respects to the only local killed in the attack. This is him, a local pony operator called Syed Shah, who was killed as he tried to snatch the gun from a terrorist to shield his guest. The chief minister was at his funeral today.
इसकी पुरजोर मजम्मत उन लोगों के साथ ताज़ियत और हमदर्दी का इजहार जिनके ऊपर और जिनके साथ ये सदमा बीता है। हमारे बाहर से मेहमान आए थे छुट्टी मनाने के लिए, बदकिस्मती से उनको कफनों में घर वापस भेजा गया है।
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the worst attack on civilians in India since 26/11. The Prime Minister has cut short his visit to Saudi. A number of high-level meetings have taken place, are still taking place. Tributes have been paid to the victims. The photos of the terrorists, 3 of them, have been released as well. But the question is, what now? How will India respond to this provocation? The Defence Minister of the country says the retaliation, when it comes, will be loud and it will be clear.
मैं भारत के दृढ़ संकल्प को दोहराना चाहूंगा कि टेररिज्म के खिलाफ हमारी जीरो टॉलरेंस की पॉलिसी है। भारत का एक एक नागरिक इस कायरतापूर्ण हरकत के खिलाफ एकजुट है। मैं इस मंच से देशवासियों को आश्वस्त करता हूं, घटना के मद्देनजर भारत सरकार वो हर कदम उठाएगी जो जरूरी और उपयुक्त होगा।
I'm being joined by Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain, who's joining us on the broadcast. He's someone who served extensively in Kashmir. General Hasnain, I thank you for your time. I want to ask you if you have been able to make any sense of the madness that we have seen on our screens yesterday and today as well.
Shreya, let me start first of all by expressing my very deep anguish. I've been watching your entire prelude to our discussion, and it is hugely moving. You are absolutely right. After 26/11, this is probably the worst tragedy as far as civilians are concerned. We've had targeting of civilians before. We've had the Amarnath Shrine, Amarnath Yatra pilgrims being targeted, the Mata Vaishno Devi pilgrims being targeted. But here, this profiling, this religious profiling which was done, singling out of the males, this is something which is absolutely dastardly, something which is not seen anywhere in the world at all. And I just want to condemn it right at the beginning. Having said that, as an observer, as an analyst, as someone with experience of Kashmir, it's my duty to analyze this and see why did this happen. And it's obvious. I will take a little time. Stop me whenever you wish. It is obvious that since the 5th of August 2019, there was a progressive normalization of the situation in Jammu and Kashmir as a whole. In Kashmir in particular, because of the large-scale deployment of forces, also because of the general administration remaining there, there was a creeping normalcy. I visited it about 3 weeks ago, and I can tell you I was at the line of control, I was at Ganderbal, I was at Srinagar, and for the first time looking into the eyes of the people, I could make out a hope, something which was quite different to what I had seen before. Earlier, there was always a doubt in the minds and the eyes of the people. Now, there seemed to be a cementing kind of an emotion in the eyes. And this is what was disturbing me. Now, you'll wonder, why should this disturb me? Obviously, it was disturbing me because as a professional, I think that returning normalcy will attract someone's attention. And that attention got attracted. Obviously, the other side was observing and realizing that this summer, a improving situation, return of tourism, large-scale tourism, almost 8 lakh tourists having visited the Tulip Garden, impending holiday season coming in. If you have one season like this year, another season next year, the narrative of Kashmir as far as Pakistan is concerned is completely over. And that is what was worrying me, because I knew that for Pakistan, it is important that they do not lose their relevance here. I've used this terminology several times on your program, not to lose their relevance. And they had to go back to do it. It was not good enough to do things in Rajouri and Poonch. It was not good enough to take it down to Kathua. Kathua is not Kashmir, as I say. The sentiment of that nation and the deep state there, the dastardly people who lead that nation, are all involved, completely obsessed with Kashmir. And they wanted to bring it back here. Now, there's this group which has been circulating on the Pir Panjal, now moved to the Kishtwar, and from there moved into an area which they must have studied, and they probably realized that the pre-Amarnath Yatra period is a period in which there's a window available in which the forces perhaps are just about preparing to come out and start the domination process of the areas, very areas which are going to become the base of the Amarnath Yatra from July onwards. They probably realize this is the window and this is the window to strike. And for there is their good luck that they had so many tourists. The season was good, the weather and climate were good, and there were so many tourists in this area enjoying themselves in this beautiful meadow, which became the meadow of death subsequently. The effect of that, which Pakistan thinks, it perceives that its relevance will be enhanced. To my mind, I think that stage has come where the people of Kashmir are going to reject this completely. Whoever I have spoken to has expressed his horror at this. And I think Pakistan has got it completely wrong. That's the first part of the intervention which I want to make. I know we will discuss the response subsequently, but I'll wait for that.
Okay, General Hasnain, here's my point. Kashmiris, there was a Kashmir Bandh today, a Jammu Bandh today as well. Every Kashmiri who has spoken out has spoken in, has been absolutely aghast at what has happened. Kashmiris are saying not in my name. Kashmiris are saying not in the name of my religion. But General Hasnain, what cannot be denied are two things. Number one, this was a targeted attack on non-Muslims, specifically Hindus. One cannot brush that under the carpet. And number two, General Hasnain, the government has now released pictures of 3 men who are behind the attack. 2 maybe Pakistanis, but at least 1, General Hasnain, is a local, is a Kashmiri. The resistance front is a local offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba, which means mostly it draws recruits from the Kashmir Valley. In some sense, it can be argued, General Hasnain, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was local support for this attack.
Shreya, you are 100% right. The resistance front, when it morphed into this particular organization from the Lashkar-e-Taiba as such, obviously took into its midst a number of locals. Without locals, they can't work. A Pakistani here cannot work without locals. Guides are required. People who know the language correctly, they are required. So this is an obvious thing which no one will deny. And besides that, when I for one talk about Kashmiris and I look at them in general, I'm talking about, let's say, 70%, 80% of them. There will be a minority of people who will still be obsessed with faith. We all know what radicalism has done to the valley. We are all aware that the 800 to 1,000 mosques have changed hands and how the old world Sufiyat has all been done away with. So it is evident that this kind of a thing will happen. And they think that by carrying out such an act, racial profiling, particularly of Hindus, they will win the hearts and minds of the Muslim population of the world. I think for a change, Pakistan is completely wrong. They think that they are right, but they are completely wrong. The world as in unison is condemning this completely. And it started from Saudi Arabia, where our Honorable Prime Minister was just visiting.
General Hasnain, but what good is this condemnation? My point to you is that as we speak, the CCS is underway. Things will be discussed. We do not know what India's response is going to be. The Defense Minister is saying that whenever it comes, and I don't think we should put any pressure on our security forces on a retaliation right away, but anyhow, the Defense Minister is saying whatever retaliation comes, it will be loud, it will be clear. But General Hasnain, the fact is, we have retaliated against Pakistan in the past. There has been the Balakot airstrikes. There have been the surgical strikes as well. What is the level of retaliation that we require, which actually ends up acting as a deterrent? Because it seems, by the looks of it, nothing, absolutely nothing, deters Pakistan from sending in terrorists into our territory and killing innocent people.
See, Shreya, first of all, your questions are absolutely valid. Having said that, I endorse your words entirely. I, for one, through any intervention, will never wish to put pressure on the government of India, on our leadership, on our military leadership. They must be empowered to take their decisions with complete freedom, and I have the fullest confidence in them. Having said that, I don't think the last time we retaliated or responded, as far as the surgical strikes were concerned, or the Balakot strike, none of these were designed as deterrent actions. One such strike cannot become a deterrence, and we all understand that. You just up the ante, and that's about all you achieve. But what you do is you message. You message that if you do this to me, I will hit you back. That is about all which happened. Now, if we have to up the ante, what the CCS will probably be discussing is what are our objectives? Do you want to put an end to this through a military victory, number one? Or you want to message across that our retaliation and response can be far stronger? Do you want to do it in the form of something which will actually bring about a deterrence? That is the other one. And the third one is just a routine response to say, we did it. Now, that's a spectrum of choices that the government of India has got. And I will not go beyond that to put any pressure on them. The government of India is fully efficient. First of all, it's an elected government. It's not like Pakistan where you have a selected government. You may have had elections in Pakistan, but the most popular person who won the election is sitting in jail there, right? We have got an elected government, fully empowered here, and that is why we must have the fullest confidence in it.
Okay. General Hasnain, I think all of us know who the enemy is. Hafiz Saeed is not the real enemy. The real enemy is the Pakistani army chief. And we've just heard from him last week on his two-nation theory, which was a completely demented statement to make, especially coming from an army chief, irrespective of which country that army chief comes from. Can I ask you, General Hasnain, then, in conclusion, I understand that there will have to be some sort of retaliation, right? This is a country that is angry. 28 tourists, Indian tourists in Kashmir have not been attacked. India has been attacked. The idea of India has been attacked. Can I ask you, what in your view should be that retaliation? Can it be cutting off diplomatic ties? Will that make any difference to Pakistan? Should it be calling off the ceasefire? It has held fairly well, but saying the gloves are off. This much and no more? Or will it be something, or can it be something far more than that? A military strike, because after all, after 26/11, we almost went to war with Pakistan. This is the worst attack on Indian civilians post 26/11. Is there anything that should stop us from going all out, sir?
See, Shreya, you have yourself spelled out the various options which form a part of the spectrum of response. And they are very clearly now available. We can all see them. There is a military option, there's a diplomatic option, there is a administrative option. All this is a full range of them. We have to be prepared that if it's the worst case, then India has to be prepared for it. As you said, the idea of India has been attacked. India has been attacked. At the end of it, therefore, if you decide to up the ante, it can lead to a progressive chain of events which can ultimately lead to the worst, that is war. And I think India should be prepared for that, and all of us should appropriately message the other side that every single person in India is a soldier. And our government will take the right decisions because we have the fullest confidence in our elected government, and so be it. Whatever they wish to do, the people of India will support it.
General Hasnain, can you wait for a minute? I have a piece of breaking news that is coming in, and I want a quick response from you on that. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now learning that 1,500 people have been rounded up across Kashmir post the Pahalgam attack that took place yesterday afternoon. This is what top sources are confirming to the Times network, that 1,500 people have been rounded up across the Kashmir Valley. General Hasnain, you can say this is routine, but the question that I need to ask you is something that a lot of people in this country are asking. It is not that we lack boots on the ground in Kashmir. Kashmir is a heavily militarized zone. Yet, for 20 minutes, sir, in Pahalgam, the firing went unchallenged. Unchallenged. Possibly because there were no security personnel in and around. Was that a mistake? Secondly, sir, my follow-up question is, when more than 24 hours, we know at least 4 to 6 militants were the ones who opened fire in Pahalgam, killing 28 Indians. Why is it so difficult to trace them?
See, coming to your second question first. Tracing 4 people on the Pir Panjal come Kishtwar. This is the same area, may I remind you, of 1995, where the Al-Firan had kidnapped 5 tourists and taken them into the Warwan Valley. The only change which has happened today is that the Warwan Valley is connected by road. Otherwise, it's one of the remotest areas of India. In 24 hours, to go in there, investigate, find out, chase up, or round up, make a contact, and eliminate these terrible terrorists is something which I think is very, very difficult. And therefore, I think we have to live within the realm of what is possible. And that, as a person, as a professional, I can tell you this, it will happen. They will get gunned down in due course, but it will take its time. A lot of people will say use scientific knowledge, use technical knowledge, use drones to detect them, etc. Let me just reassure you, all this will be done. But it is not easy to look for a pin in a haystack. This jungle is not an ordinary jungle. Coming down from the slopes of the Kishtwar, joining up with the Pir Panjal is one of the most heavily wooded areas in the whole of Kashmir. I have no doubt that we will ultimately locate them and we will eliminate them. Coming back to your first question, I think it will be premature for me to comment and say what the mistakes were. We saw the Honorable Home Minister was there in Pahalgam today. He had gone to Basaran, the area of the meadow. He has spoken to the various commanders on ground, was briefed out there. I'm sure due investigations will take place like they always have, and we will get our answers in due course. It may be unfair on my part to point fingers at anyone at this particular stage.
General Hasnain, I thank you for joining us on Mirror Now and giving your perspective on what has happened and what could be coming next. I thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now being joined by Amitabh Mattoo, who is an academic. He's a Kashmiri himself, also a former cabinet advisor to the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. Professor Mattoo, what happened in Pahalgam is the worst attack on Indian civilians after 26/11. It's not just an attack on Indian tourists. This very clearly is an attack on India. Has it set the clock back for Kashmir? And by how long?
Undoubtedly so. I mean, I think even those who live in denial will have to accept that what's happened in Pahalgam, unprecedented. A group of tourists from all over India, including those who might be NRIs or PIOs from abroad, who've been targeted and killed in this dastardly fashion. That's put the clock back. Tourism will have to build another narrative. The idea of Kashmir as a safe and sacred space for tourists is deeply wounded, if not dead. So really, you have to go back to the drawing board and start reworking on this whole idea of Kashmiri hospitality, tourism, and as a safe place. It'll take months. It'll take perhaps even one more season for it to come back. And it all depends on what happens between now and then. If there are incidents like this which happen again, then the clock will keep turning back. And that is the real tragedy. Because when you had this huge number of tourists from all over India coming to Kashmir and thinking of Kashmir as this beautiful, charming place, talking about the local cuisine, looking about the shikarawala and the hospitality of the ordinary Kashmiri, that is going to be replaced by images of what happened in Pahalgam, the blood, the shooting, the innocent deaths. That public memory is short, but not that short.
Professor Mattoo, as we speak, these are live visuals that are coming to us from Haryana. This is where the mortal remains of the young Indian Navy lieutenant have just arrived, Vinay Narwal, married just 8 days ago. His wife of 8 days, now widowed. That one picture that will halt Pahalgam perhaps forever. As Haryana and the nation come out to pay their respects to all those who have died in Pahalgam, can I ask you then, is Pahalgam an indicator of the fact that a record number of tourists cannot be a barometer for normalcy? Did we misjudge an underlying sentiment?
That is true, but on the other hand, after all, the confidence of an ordinary Indian to travel to a place like Kashmir reflects a certain idea of normalcy. Our normalcy is not in some ways an objective notion of parameters, because after all, Bihar would experience more deaths in non-natural deaths than Kashmir. But it's about a subjective perception. Normalcy is a construction in the manner of which the average tourist from Mysore or Goa or Mumbai or Kolkata sees Kashmir. And that idea of normalcy had come back, that idea that you could go with your family, have a budget holiday in Kashmir, had come back. And that, unfortunately, this incident is going to be huge, huge setback. And it's a setback, most of all, for all the Kashmiris, all the Kashmiri syncretic culture, the Kashmiris who had invested in the hospitality industry, and the Kashmiris who were looking forward to another glorious tourist season. Because sadly so, I don't think this tourist season can be easily repaired.
Professor Mattoo, is there any getting away from the fact that it was specifically non-Muslims, Hindu men, who were identified and shot down? Yes, there are 2 Muslim men who have been killed as well. One of them, a pony owner who was just trying to protect his client. But there is little doubt about the fact that this was a communal killing, and it is one that will spin communal rhetoric. There is now no getting away from that.
No, you can't get away with the fact that this is the terrible, tragic reality of what happened in Pahalgam yesterday. But the only way in which you can get beyond that is to recognize that those who are trying to inject this deep communal poison, those who targeted Hindu men, and deliberately so, are the worst enemies of everything that idea of India and the idea of Jammu Kashmir. After all, the idea of Jammu Kashmir is a microcosm of the idea of India, which is that different faiths, different religions, different languages can coexist. And this idea is in complete opposition to the kind of idea that the army chief of Pakistan propagated the other day when he spoke to overseas Pakistanis. Obnoxious speech, a speech of which every Pakistani should be ashamed of, a speech which belongs to the most medieval extremist ideological strain. So if there is in some ways a pug mark, a DNA fingerprint, it's to that general who spoke the words that he did. And what you saw him was the gunmen, the terrorists in Pahalgam were really reflective of that ideology.
Professor Mattoo, at one point, and these are visuals that all of us have now seen, there is a 46-year-old tourist from Karnataka, Manjunath, who is shot dead. We'll put his pictures in just a bit. His wife tells the terrorist, "You have killed my husband, now kill me as well." There they are. And the terrorist goes on to say, no, I will not. Go tell Modi this. What is this guy doing? He's daring the Indian state to say, now let's see what you do next.
One, of course, that's in some bizarre fashion, he was trying to say that we are going to kill men and not women. So this is, we are killing all these non-Muslims or Hindus in this case, but also sending a message to the Indian state. What can you do to us? And that's why, in word and deed, the Indian state has to respond. Action is risky, always is risky. But non-action today is going to be disastrous. If the Indian state and the Prime Minister, who's cut short his visit to Saudi Arabia and come back, does not respond to this humiliation, this terrible killing on Indian soil, then I'm afraid it'll be an erosion of all that we stand for in terms of ideas, in terms of ideology, in terms of the very construction of the idea of India.
Then in your view, what should the nature of that retaliation be? The timing can be left to the security forces and the government. They are the best ones to decide, not an angry public. But what should be the nature of that retaliation, sir?
Every army commander in the Indian Army has war gamed this, planned this. There are high-value targets. Together with diplomatic practices, together with economic measures, together with looking at even sacred, what you're seen as sacred treaties like the Indus Water Treaty. We know what the options are. The reality is we need the political will to exercise those options. There are options on the table, and there are options which can be escalated depending on how Pakistan responds. But at this time, when you have the United States and most of our allies speaking for us, any retaliation, any response which is proportionate to what happened in Pahalgam will win approval. Non-action will make you seem like just another weak democracy which talks stuff but does little else.
Can I finally, in conclusion, ask you, you are a Kashmiri as well, when you saw what happened in Pahalgam and the pictures that started coming to us by afternoon, I want to ask you what your first reaction was. Was it horror? Was it anger? Was it shame? Was it something else?
I was devastated. I was ashamed that this had happened on my motherland in Kashmir, that this terrible, terrible tragedy had occurred in Kashmir. And so I am in some ways pleased that across the spectrum, you have from within civil society or politics in Kashmir, everyone come out in the streets against these killings and condemning them in unison, because there is no explanation, no justification. And this is the worst attack against Kashmir, worst attack against Kashmiris. The real sufferers are going to be not just the people and the families of those killed, but Kashmir as an idea, as a destination, and even we as a people.
Professor Mattoo, I thank you for your time. Thank you very much. Introducing my guest to you this evening, Major General Dr. Yash Mode, defense analyst, joining us on the broadcast. Pratikit Pain, thank you very much. You're a geopolitical analyst. Ashok Sajjanhar is a former diplomat, joining us on the broadcast. And Sarfaraz Wani is a lawyer. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. I think I should start with the voice from Kashmir. Sarfaraz Wani, I want to ask you, today we have seen people in Jammu, people in Kashmir call for a full bandh to oppose, to protest what has happened in Pulwama. Fact is, we know where Pulwama was planned. Everyone knows. Even a class 3 child who watched what saw yesterday knows what has happened. I want to ask you, Sarfaraz Wani, what you think should be India's retaliation? How should India retaliate to Pakistan?
Shreya, first of all, there are no sides to this debate today. Without any politics, without taking any sides, without bashing the government, without bashing the intelligence agencies, I want to say this is highly condemnable. This is a carnage which has taken place. It is a direct assault on the character of Kashmiris. See, this is, I could not sleep all night after seeing that picture of a woman wailing over the dead body of her husband. This is absolutely nonsense what has happened. Number second, this is not an attack only on the tourists. This is an attack on the livelihood of everyone, be it the taxi walas, be it the hoteliers, be it the waiters. This is a direct assault on the economy of Kashmir, and you don't know the repercussions, what is going to happen. After a long we had a tourist season, after a long we had people coming to Kashmir, and now you see we are all back to the same.
ठीक है.
Number third, I think we should leave it to the security
ठीक है.
agencies
Major General Yash.
to decide the response. Regarding the response, I think it is the security agency which has to decide. It has not to be a symbolic gesture like we did in Pulwama, like we did other ways. Those were symbolic gestures. I think something strong has to happen that after all, once and for all, we see some real change on the ground.
Major General Yashmore, come in here. We thought after Pulwama happens, we see the surgical strikes. We think that was, we thought and hoped that it would be a deterrent. It didn't turn out to be a deterrent. Then we saw the Balakot strikes. It seems even that was not a deterrent. What does India do right now? And there is a CCS underway, and the government and the security forces and the CDS and the army chief and the navy chief and the air force chief are the best ones to decide what India should do. But I want to ask you, is there anything we can do at this point of time that puts the fear of God in Pakistan?
Yeah, Shreya, as my fellow panelists said, this is one of the worst tragedy. I think every Indian heart is crying today, since yesterday. It is attack on soul of India and the soul of Kashmir. So no words can really justify what has happened there, whatever may be, our shortcomings or, but this is really one of the most horrible things. I've served in this area some years back. And so this is really sad. Now, I think we have a lot of issues on the table. I think this has to be whole of nation approach. And we must gear up our Navy, the Air Force, the Army. I'm sure they have the options worked out. And this time we must hurt Pakistan Army very badly. They must feel the pinch. And also the people who support this kind of narrative. So I think the first step we must do is call out the Pakistan Army chief and make an example out of him by probably declaring him as somebody who supports terrorism. So that would be a huge thing if our diplomatic missions can do that and impress upon US and other countries that this is the man. It is after that horrible speech he gave, which is a shame for anyone who has worn a uniform. Anyone from any nation who wears a uniform can never think like that, because people in uniform are brought up in a different manner. The other thing, I think we must use our Navy. And we must, it should not be that one night operation. No, that will not do. Now we must think through. We must be cool. Revenge is best served cold. So there should be no pressure on anyone. But take time, prepare yourself, and really do something what we did probably in 71. Probably blockade, make them pinch the economic pinch, maybe the Indus Water Treaty, and also any kind of economic dealing. Any nation who deals with Pakistan must pay for it. So I think, and get, of course, the diplomatic corps must be fully active. We must bring China on board, bring Russia, America, Iran on board. Iran has huge problems with Pakistan. Saudi Arabia, the entire Muslim world must speak up as India stands up. So at the strategic level, at the economic level, and of course on the line of control, now there shouldn't be any ceasefire. We should hit targets wherever possible, really make them bleed. And also make them bleed in Balochistan, make them bleed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, make them bleed on the Durand line. Why on the LC here? So this has to be really well thought of, well planned. A lot of agencies have to work together with national resolve, and that is, it should be a punishment which goes on for some time till this they come down to their knees and accept ki yes, no longer can they fund terror in this manner.
Ashok Shahjanar, will breaking diplomatic ties have any impact on Pakistan at all? I mean, I understand the entire world today is coming together and saying, "Bahut bura hua, we stand with India," etc. But I think there is an understanding in India that Pakistan is our problem. And we will have to deal with this problem ourselves, like we have been dealing with them for the last 65, 70 years. And clearly, there is no diplomatic solution here to what Pakistan has done. No diplomatic retaliation that will actually stop Pakistan in its steps.
Is that a question to me, Shreya?
Yes, Mr. Sajjanhar. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so, there might be some diplomatic action that we might decide to take, but that will not be adequate. That could be a part of the total approach, the manner in which we would like to respond to Pakistan, but it cannot be the only action that we take. There are a number of options that have been given by the other panelists, and I think there are so many other options that are floating around as to what India could do. But I tend to agree with you what you said, breaking diplomatic ties with Pakistan, that's purely symbolic. Meaning it is not really going to make any difference as far as Pakistan is concerned. In any case, we don't have high commissioners in each other's capital since August 2019, when Pakistan withdrew that. And, there might be a little bit of trade that is going on, but there is minimal, exchange that is taking place between the two countries. Whether it is SAARC or any of the other, multilateral or intergovernmental instruments, there is nothing really happening on that score. So that is not going to help. I think the only thing that the country is also looking at, and I think the government would feel incumbent upon itself to take some action, will have to be military action, will have to be kinetic action, which gives pain as far as the Pakistan military is concerned. I will just very quickly give you these two examples, both of Uri and of Pulwama. Balakot happened after that. And what the stand of this government has been as far as, what the government did not do and should have done after the 2008 Mumbai attacks, 26/11. And I'm sure that the government does not wish to be put in that corner which it has been putting the UPA government earlier. So definitely some sort of a kinetic response has to be there, and knowing, also the fact, what is it that these terrorists did? Meaning they attacked the Hindus. That means if the government doesn't take any action, that means it is not equipped to protect the majority community in the country. Meaning people can come, they can sort of slaughter members of the majority community, and the government is not really able to do anything about it or will not take action. So I think inaction or non-action is not a part of the game plan. Definitely something will happen. And what has to happen, it has to be more than Uri.
Okay.
It has to be much more than Balakot. And it has to be visible. It has to be obvious. The pain has to be felt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pratikit Pine, the old-timers often used to say Kashmir is cursed, and maybe Kashmir is cursed. In the last 3-4 years, you have record number of tourists showing up, and then suddenly one day, the meadows of Pahalgam, known for its beauty, becomes a killing ground. Pratikit, I want to ask you this. Pakistan, its foreign minister is saying, look, India blames us for everything. We have nothing to do with this. Now, their response is not something we need to take seriously. But the fact is that something needs to be done. even, I would say, the most moderate voices in India today are saying that you cannot let this pass. There are already the opposition talking about Amit Shah's resignation, saying this has happened under the Home Minister's watch. After all, Jammu and Kashmir is a union territory. You were the one in charge of security. This has happened under you. You need to resign. Now, my own belief is that in the middle of a war, and this is a war, you don't expect or want your general to resign. But I want to ask you what you think should be India's response.
Sorry. Shreya, one thing we know about this government is this, that they will definitely respond. But I think somewhere we make a mistake of presuming that our response should be proportionate. No, you cannot have a proportionate response. You have to have a disproportionately high level of response to raise your bar of consequence for anything that they do. Unfortunately, we always thought that a one-off action in a Balakot is good enough. Whereas I've always felt that what was done in Balakot should have been a norm than an exception. It should have been part of our counter-terror response mechanism. That is what we have to understand, that is what we have to feel. If you ask me, Shreya, I mean, I'm not surprised with what has happened yesterday, frankly. The manner in which, they were trying to find out, whether somebody was a Muslim or not, they were asking people to take off their trousers. This is exactly what happened in 1971. This is exactly what was happened in the past. And let me tell you one thing. We are secular. You can be secular. I can be secular. But our adversaries are not secular. They have an ingrained hatred towards Hindus. And that is where we have to be very clear that our adversaries are very sorted and very clear about what they want to do with us. They want to bleed us with 1,000 cuts. They have this ingrained hatred. What that general said that day was not an exception. This is exactly what is taught in the Pakistani schools and madrasas. That is part of their DNA, the hatred they have for the Hindus. And we try to understand Pakistan through the prism of India, which is where we make a terrible mistake. So I think when it comes to a response, it has to be kinetic, no doubt. It has to be a prolonged response. It has to be painful on them. And I think it is not a war that the army alone can fight. It has to be a people's war, because when you decide that you want to go to a conflict, when you decide that I want to respond, it cannot be like a switch on, switch off thing. People today are saying, let's go for a war. Then you should be mentally prepared for that, because prices are going to go up, because there will be cost involved, because you can never go to a war with a balance sheet in hand. There is never a profitable war, and yet war is a necessity. Otherwise, Kurukshetra would never have happened. So I think it is people who have to understand. You cannot switch off if you start. But today, situation is come. If you want a perpetual peace and a permanent solution, then something has to be done, which might be painful and difficult, but it has to be done. We need a surgery and not just a surgical strike. It is something that is hitting, there is an emotional aspect of what happened yesterday. And if we do not do something, then we are leaving aside this conflict to be fought by our next generation. We are passing it on. But that inevitable big conflict is someday going to happen. So how we do it, it is up to the army and the government to decide, but it has to be prolonged and it has to be multidimensional. Let them feel the pinch of what it feels when you can't export and import. Blockade is one, and invariably other ways are there. I think the ones in the army and the government are better aware, but I think we have to be mentally prepared. It cannot be 7 days, 10 days down the line. People think, "Arey, share market gir gaya, IPL final hai, kya kar rahe ho, Modi ji?" Aisa nahi ho sakta. And that is where the mentality has to be with the government, that you go ahead, we are there to support you. I know the government will respond, but it cannot be a Balakot. It has to be a Balakot perhaps for 15 days. Back to you.
Major General Yashmore, my question, and it's going to be an unpopular one, but I am nevertheless going to ask it because it's patriotic to ask tough questions to yourself as well. Major General Moore, while we understand that Pakistan is to blame for what has happened in Pahalgam, fact is our security apparatus has failed as well. These terrorists, after all, did infiltrate at some point of time. They did get shelter at some point of time from local people. So your local intelligence has failed as well. And then, of course, Pahalgam, completely unguarded, at a time when it is brimming, absolutely brimming with tourists. So our security apparatus failed as well, Major General Moore.
Yeah, Shreya, some tough questions must be asked, and they say a good patriot is the one who asks questions from the government. So I think you're right. This is one more failure added to our list of failures. We have had so many failures, and we never investigated them. Where is accountability? Where is sense of responsibility? Where is human intelligence? You can't fight battle in Kashmir, those heights, those jungles. I have slogged there for months and months together. It takes Shreya 1 साल लगता है, 6 महीने लगता है to cultivate one intelligence, one source who believes in you, who trusts you, जो आपके भाई की तरह कहता है यार ये नेक इंसान है, इसको मैंने खबर देनी है और ये सही काम करेगा. So we are depending on technology. Yes, you have UAVs, drones, and all that. But these guys, the weapon system they're using, the radio sets they are using, we cannot even tap into them. They're using frequency hopping. They're using the best possible handheld radio communication available in the world. This is Lashkar-e-Toiba Part 2. This is funded by ISI and Pak Army. So we can't fight this battle if we don't have center of gravity of counterinsurgency is the people. So connect with the people from, young officers to battalion commanders to brigade commanders. I can give you examples of how we broke the back of these same organizations, the same area. 20 years, we did covert operations, we did small team operations, we surprised them, we shocked them at places they never thought Fauj aayegi. Ye kaise pahunch gayi Fauj yahan? Because we worked very hard. So yes, intelligence agencies,
Okay.
the IB, the RAW, the military intelligence, all of them should be asked tough questions now. How did they infiltrate so deep? They must have wrecked this place. They must have surveyed it. They must have decided. Somebody should have said, yahi target acha hai. Otherwise, how will it happen there? Why did it happen there? ये डल लेक के पास क्यों नहीं हुआ? निशात बाग शालीमार में क्यों नहीं हुआ? Because all around there is security. Somebody will respond. You can get caught in this. यहाँ they have just picked up people, killed them 20-25 minutes and walked away. This is really horrifying. It makes me feel very sad. So human intelligence, we need to cultivate, go back to the drawing board, and really work on the intelligence parts. Very, very important. Very important.
Okay, General Moore, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for joining us. Pratikit Pain, thank you very much. Ashok Sajjanar, thank you. And Sarfaraz Wani, thank you very much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Pahalgam continues to be a developing story. As and when there are things that need to be reported, we'll be right here on Mirror Now. For the moment, it's a wrap from me.